Welcome, everybody, to our Wednesday study group that shall not be named. It's great to be here with people from Sun City, with people from Savannah, with people from out of state. And again, just excited to be able to continue studying. I'll mention it later, but we are going to have our first in-person meeting in Sun City on March 22nd. So at 10:30, it will still be on Zoom though. So I'll still have the portable Zoom, so no worries.
Yeah, Larry, can you move? You're not in the picture.
There we go, Larry.
I'm chewing something, so I didn't want to.
You're now chewing something live on YouTube. It is now on our computer and our YouTube site forever. So what we're doing today is a continuation of what we did last week, which of course was speaking about the history and some about American Jewish authors. And again, we talked a little bit about American being a general statement. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be born in America, possibly raised in America. That's up to you. So we spoke about some really wonderful authors last time. I spoke about Isaac Asimov and Harry Golden. And we spoke about some others. So today we're going to invite anybody who has some authors they'd like to talk about, both the novels or other books, and a little bit of the history of those authors. So anybody, so I think Arlene wants to start. Who do you want to talk about, Arlene?
Yes, I have a book here, a novel by Bernie Shine. He's an author from Beaufort, a friend of Pat Conroy's, and his book is famous all over town.
Really? So is he still living?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yes, Bernie Shine, a very nice young fellow. And I have his book. Here's his book right here.
Is he from Beaufort?
Yes, he's born and raised in Beaufort.
And he still lives there?
Yes, yes.
All right. And what type of profession was he in? Is he a professional author, or was this something a second profession?
No. He's an author. In fact, I met him a couple of times over the years. A very nice young fellow, nice fellow. And like I said, he was a very good friend of Pat Conroy's, born and raised with Pat.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I have heard of him a little bit. And of course, he's very famous for one book in particular, which is?
The famous all over town.
Famous Alta. Did he write The Prince of Tides as well?
The Prince of Tides, no, I think.
Oh, that's Pat
Conroy.
Conroy.
Pat Conroy wrote that. Yeah,
That's
Pat
right.
Conroy. Yeah. Yeah. And
Bernie
then,
Shine had helped him with that.
I think so. And yeah, and then I have a book called The Jewish Americans.
Oh, he wrote The Jewish Americans. I think that's
This is a different book, but with a different authors. But
right.
but here it is.
Bernie Shine wrote the biography of Pat Conroy. Maybe that's what it was.
Yes, he did.
Very cool.
Okay.
And have you met? And you say he's a really nice guy.
Yes, he is. I've met him a couple of times.
And so, what does he do besides? Is he also do anything else besides author? Is he a professor as well, or?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he's doing now. This was a few years ago, so I'm not really sure about that.
Because I mean, it doesn't have to be, but sometimes professor.
Yeah.
I mean, they also do other things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's go to his site. So it says, according to Pat Conroy, he's the funniest man alive.
Okay.
I thought that was Ron, but apparently it's Bernie Shine.
No, that's you.
That's me. He has actually just spoken Hilton Head a few weeks ago, according to his website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, that might be somebody we can invite to speak. It says he was bar mitzvahed in Beaufort,
Yes.
and he was an educator for 45 years. So I don't know what that means in terms of, was it college or was it elementary? He's been on NPR. He's written for the Atlantic Journal, Constitution, Newsweek, the Jewish Advocate. Pretty prominent guy. I don't think I've heard of him, but I don't know if I've met him. That'd be somebody really interesting to get a hold of.
He would be, yes.
Yes, he would be.
In fact, he's very familiar with Arlene's family.
Everybody knows Arlene's family.
That
We're
was
so
in,
connected.
that was in Beaufort since 1890.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And so this is a really interesting guy. I wonder if we could see, he may be doing a speaking engagement at some point that we could see about going to if he spoke in Hilton Head. We'll have to see his.
Well, they actually have the Pat Conroy Center, Literary Center, and he comes there and speaks. We've heard him speak at the Literary Center in Beaufort. And a lot of Pat Conroy's friends come back and forth, and his wife still lives in the Beaufort area. She's written several books, and she talks about it. And the former mayor of Beaufort, who was also Jewish, was a friend of Pat Conroy's, and and they've been here at the Shalom. He's been here at the Shalom Club.
Oh, great. Well, would you let me know if he's doing it again? It does
Yeah.
say he just spoke in Hilton Head on the 12th and the 14th about the biography of Pat Conroy. So that would be something really interesting. Thanks for bringing up somebody in the nearby area. Have you met him, Karen, as well?
No, I have not. No.
That is awesome. So it's nice to have really cool. So I would love to see how maybe we get him to speak at the synagogue one of these days too. We're looking at, that's a good idea. I'm going to write that down as a possible speaker for synagogue, because it's always great because if you get somebody in the area, you don't have to worry about paying for, flights, and you don't have to worry about paying for hotels and all that. All right. That's a great one. Thank you for bringing him up. That was really interesting. And I haven't read, have you read any of his books? Did you read that book, Arlene?
I have it right in front of me here, Famous All Over Town. I started, I didn't finish it, but I think I'm going to read it now that I have it.
What's it about?
Let me see now. I'm just trying to look at it.
Read the,
Yeah, let me just see what it says here. Okay, let me see what it says here.
you have your glasses?
Yeah, but it doesn't say in the front exactly. what
Okay,
it
no
is.
worries. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have another author that they want to mention? Oh, Larry had one he wanted to mention.
Yeah, I have actually three came to mind just because I was reading the just stuff that came over the internet. One is somehow on the internet site for what's called the Meyerson JCC in Manhattan, and they're doing a film festival. And one of the films that came up is a film called Forever Judy Blume. I mentioned this to the rabbi, and apparently I had no idea. I knew the name Judy Blume because of the kids, obviously, but I had no idea of her influence, on the very young adult population. And the rabbi, of course, being an ex-teacher, he said, "Yeah, of course I knew Judy Blume. I, used to read her stuff to the kids." But there is a film now, Forever Judy Blume, that the Meyerson is doing. And I said to the rabbi, maybe we can even get the film and show it. But someone has taken that story, which I guess is about 20 or 30 years old, and they made it into a Netflix documentary, which is going to start in April. So it's going to be a new series, updated, on Forever Judy Blume. And I guess she's also written, something about, "Oh God, where are you?" or something. I forget
Oh yeah, God, it's me, Margaret. That was actually written
Right.
after I was a finished elementary school teacher, but that was a very controversial and very important book for a lot of people for a lot of reasons. So it really is, she was very famous she was probably one of the most famous authors when I was an elementary school teacher, certainly living. And, I think I read her, but she's been around for a while because I read some of her books when I was a kid.
Yeah, she was born in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and her father was a physician, but she became quite an activist, and I never realized the impact that she, I thought she wrote, these teenage novels kind of things, but the subject matter that she chose apparently was very, very ahead of its time, talking about the problems of teenagers growing up and things and in society. And so, a Jewish author, not necessarily Jewish in what she's writing about Judaism, but just problems that everybody faces, I think.
Yeah, I forgot. No, Are You There, Godspeed Margaret was published. That was one from, I'm thinking a different book. That one was around way before me. So that was kind of like probably in the 60s or 70s. I was thinking of another book. But yeah, she did, like for those of us who were just reading for fun, the Super Fudge novels were very popular and we loved reading those. It's about a rambunctious little boy that, could easily be my son, funny enough. And I know, I'm sure she's won lots of honors through the years. Do you know of anything else? Where does she live now?
I don't know. I didn't get a chance.
I don't know if she's still living.
I didn't get a chance. I was going to do a little bit more research into it, into Wikipedia and stuff. If she's still alive, I think she is.
Yes, it says here she is 85 and she's still alive. She went to New York University. And of course, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing was, and it doesn't say where she lives now, but she was raised in New Jersey. She probably lives in
Florida, probably. No,
Key West, yeah, Florida. Good
Oh,
guess.
it
Looks like.
was just a wild guess.
Yeah, that's not
so
a
wild.
wild guess is like Idaho.
Right.
Florida is a pretty good guess, I think.
Lives in Sun City. Sun City.
But
Yeah,
I,
Sun City is not a wild guess either. I hate to say
no, but
it.
I figured if she lived in South Carolina, we'd already know about
That's
it.
a good point, yeah.
Florida.
But Tales of the Fourth Grade Nothing, Blubber, Super Fudge, and then the Super Fudge books were the ones that I read.
Be
growing up.
interesting to see if any of her books are being banned.
That I bet you know what? That is a really good question, because if any book's going to be bad, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, maybe one of them. That would be one that I could see people unfortunately banning.
Was that a questioning book about whether or not her relationship, whether or not there is a God? I don't know the book at all.
No, that's a book. That's a book about being a girl growing up and the issues you face. So I never read that book. Funny enough, that was it's about adolescence for boys and the physical changes girls are going through, and that's why it was like the preeminent growing up book for girls and about all the body changes that are going on. So that's why I could see that being unfortunately banned with all this what's going on in the world today. I don't know if it is. I mean, I hopefully it's not, but I could see it.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, she is incredibly. I don't know if she's written anything. Again, most of the stuff I know from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but I don't know if she's written anything since. But that would be
Her
interesting.
influence on the world in general, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, she was a
remarkable.
very. She's top 20 children's author certainly for that period, if not top 10. So she's awesome, and I didn't even realize she was Jewish till you mentioned. Although it seems pretty obvious because she has written Jewish. I think Are You There, God? She's a Jewish kid, but I haven't read that book. All right, thank you. That's an excellent one. So everybody check out Judy Blume, Bernie Shine, who's somebody I would like to see about coming to visit. He seems like he'd be great. Karen, you have another one, and we'll come back to you, Larry.
Yeah, I did. I think because it was so influential on my, was Leon Uris. I mentioned him last
Of course.
And he was born in, I just looked up his bio this morning. He was born in 1924. He's from New York or New Jersey. Well, he was born in Baltimore. I shouldn't say New York or New Jersey. He's actually born in Baltimore. His parents were Jewish immigrants from, or on one side, his parents from Russia and Poland. So, Eastern European Jews. But his first book was Battle Cry, which I've never read, and it was made into a movie. But the one that, of course, hooked me on his books was Exodus.
Right.
It was published in 1958, and I think it was, I remember I was in high school when I read it, and it was sort of my introduction to the story of Israel. And I've read it 3 times.
Oh,
probably
really?
again. Well, I read it in high school. I read it again when I was a young mom. And then I read it again before my first trip to Israel, kind of as a historical review. And, but I mean, I assume everyone's read Exodus. If not, you've all read Exodus, haven't you? I mean, it's just.
I have. It's a wonderful.
Because it also talks so much, it delves back into, the Holocaust, and it was partly my introduction to that as well, to some of what had gone on. And as I said, I think I was a sophomore in high school when I read it. So, but he wrote, I don't know if I'm saying it right, is it Mila 18? I would assume.
Mila 18. I've read that one.
Warsaw Ghetto.
He wrote
the
Hajj.
Trinity. Yeah, the Hajj I have not read. I was looking through all this.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I want to. And some of what the criticism of him has been that his stories about Israel were too anti-Arab. I mean, apparently of course I didn't know much at the time, but that he has been accused of that.
Well, the Hajj is a really interesting novel because it talks about the growth of the Jews and how in Israel they become more technologically advanced and
Right.
more modern and start leaving at least educationally, the Muslims behind and start
Uh-huh.
organizing in a way that is first world, and it really gives them a very big edge.
Yeah.
It's a great book. I really enjoyed
It was,
it.
oh, was it QB7?
I've not read that one.
QB7. I read that one, and that's, I know
What's
it's
that one about?
written, gosh,
I read Mila 18, Topaz, The Hajj,
Trying
Mitla
to look.
Pass, and
Mitla
Exodus.
Pass.
Because I got into him reading all of his stuff for a while, but I never read QB7. I don't
So
know what that's about.
QB7, I read it. It's a courtroom drama published in 1970, highlights the events leading to a libel trial in the United Kingdom. And it's about an author of a book about called The Holocaust. He names an eminent surgeon as one of the Yadviga concentration camp's most sadistic doctors. So it's about the experiments that were done, and it's kind of a courtroom case. I read it many years ago, so I really didn't remember what it was about, but that's a good one. I mean,
I have not read that one. Again,
yeah. So
that sounds like a good one.
and then one other one, just one more I want to mention, because I don't know, does the name Rabbi Abraham J. Klausner ring a bell for you, Rabbi? Doesn't.
Does not.
Okay. I'm reading his book right now. He was my rabbi growing up. He was a Reform rabbi. Most of his career was in Yonkers, New York, which is where Rabbi Cantor had said, when I mentioned him, said, oh, he's one of the greats. But what he's known for prior to becoming a rabbi.
Then yes, if he's one of the greats, I definitely know who he is, because I know all the greats.
Yes. Well, anyway, I'm reading this. He
I'm
apparently, well, and I'm going to do a class. We're going to do an Oseh Shalom class. I committed to that sometime. I don't know.
Oh,
when.
I know. I just looked it up.
He was one of the, he liberated.
He's one of the soldier
Dachau.
rabbis. Yeah.
The chaplain right after he graduated from HUC.
Right.
He became a chaplain during World War II, or late in the war, and was sent to Dachau within weeks of its liberation. And he basically took on organizing, better housing, better treatment of displaced persons. And he actually organized and made possible the first all-Jewish settlement in a place called, let's see if I can remember how to say it, Faldafing or Faldafang. Does that ring a bell?
Mm-mm.
Anyway, he compiled a book that was later expanded. It's called Sharit HaPlata. And it was a list of Holocaust survivors, because he found when he got to Dachau and these poor, emaciated, Holocaust survivor, concentration camp survivors were, the first thing they wanted to know is, do you know, have you met my, my friend, my relative, my this one, that one. And so he started compiling this thing, which today, I guess Yad Vashem has, digitized, but it's a big deal in helping Holocaust survivors find friends and relatives. And really he spent 3 or 4 years over there. And there's a very good video. I never knew any of this, by the way, growing up. He was a big part of a movie, Academy Award-winning movie called The Long Way Home.
Oh, yeah.
Covers the period from 1945 to 1948. What happened to all these survivors between the time the war ended and the founding of the State of Israel. And so I just ordered a copy of it. I thought I had a copy. I couldn't find it. He wrote a memoir in around 2002, and it's called, I'm sitting reading it, Letter to My Children from the Edge of the Holocaust. And it talks about everything that happened from the time he arrived in Germany and Bavaria. So in a very fascinating history. So
yeah.
Stu and I are going to be in Munich in next month, in April.
Yeah.
So we're going to visit Dachau, and I wanted to read this before I went. Okay, that's all.
Thank you. And I think, excellent. I know he is. I don't think I've heard of that documentary. I didn't think it won the Academy Award as well. But I actually haven't seen it, so I need to watch it.
I have a copy of it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
I have a copy of it, yeah.
So let's go to Ron, and then we'll go back to Larry.
No, while we have a range of books about Jews for everything, here's one that I don't think most people have read. It's called The Jews of Sing Sing.
Oh, I have not.
Over here. And it's by Ron Ahrens. And it's really quite interesting because I think most people think of Jews as very family-minded, and they don't drink and they don't do this, they don't do that. But here it is, the Jews of Sing Sing. Very interesting.
Any of Arlene's relatives in that book?
Her grandmother could be. That's a whole different true story, though.
Well, I have not heard of it. So this is, and what's the name? How do you spell his last name? Aaron? Ronald Aaron?
Arons.
Okay. Ron Aarons. Okay. I've not heard the Jews of Sing. Is he somebody who was in prison and did it? Do we know? Or did he just have a good, is this like about organized crime or just Jews in prison?
It's about Jews in prison and the organized crime.
Okay. So it's about kind of organized crime. Excellent.
Yeah.
And I wonder if was he connected or did he just like it?
I don't know.
We have to look up on.
It says here he was a marketer with high-tech companies before doing this. So he just, and he's been on PBS. So he's written other books, but he just liked writing about criminals. Interesting. Quite frankly, I'd rather write about criminals than be one, because if you're a famous criminal, life probably have served time in prison if you get famous. Probably the best criminals are the ones that aren't famous.
Right.
It's like I was just telling somebody, we're talking about 60 shows. You guys remember the show that Get Smart
Oh, yeah.
in the 60s? I still remember when that Agent 87 or 89 meets Maxwell Smart for the first time and says, "Oh my goodness, you're the most famous secret agent in the world."
Arlene's grandmother and grandfather owned a lot of speakeasies. And they had the New York Yankees used to go there because of the food. Al Capone was there, and other infamous people.
Meyer also.
Maya Lansky was there. And she said to me when she was quite ill, she says, "When I get better, I'm going to move the family to Arizona to start new businesses," which of course she passed away, but we often think about that.
Very cool.
No, she was the only woman allowed in the Schwitz in New York to play poker with the mafia.
I wish she had written a book or had memoirs.
Well, unfortunately, we think back now, and there was so much more. But what did we know? We were young.
Right.
So, but I'm sure she passed with a lot of stories.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So Larry, you had another one. I know you mentioned Judy Blume, but you didn't tell me the other ones you were going to bring up.
Yeah, I got quite a few on my mind. They just keep popping up but they're not in the tradition of what you would call authors who wrote novels.
They don't have to be novels, just have to written books.
This one came in the other day on the newspaper, The Way We Were. Now, I don't know if you saw the movie with Barbara Streisand.
I either saw it or heard of it.
It's like number 5 on the all-time romantic list. And, Barbara Streisand, the background singing is beautiful. Robert Redford, the romance. But the screenwriter for it was Arthur Lawrence, who is a Jewish guy. And he actually wrote the screenplay for also West Side Story.
Oh.
And the screenplay for Gypsy. And both of them have, of course, West Side Story started out to be East Side Story, which was a takeoff on the Jew and an Irish girl, and they changed it later on to something that was more in the headlines of the gang violence in New York. But at any rate, Lawrence, a lot of it is autobiographical. I didn't realize in The Way We Were, and it's a story of it's this. Prominent author. He becomes a prominent author, and he's non-Jewish, and she's obviously a very Jewish kind of, the Barbara Streisand character, very, very Jewish kind of girl, from 2 different lives, and they end up marrying, go to Hollywood, and have different careers, and end up splitting up and things. And a lot of it based on his own life, according to this article, which I didn't realize. So, just another example of, Jews in screenwriting, I think, were in place.
Oh my gosh, that would be
A lot of them.
Ever.
It's a whole other subject. I was just coming home in the car. Jane had an appointment with a doctor this morning, and I'm listening to Sirius XM, and all of a sudden, Irving Berlin's "Annie Get Your Gun" comes on. And Irving Berlin, of course, wrote not only the music, but he wrote the lyrics. And I can do anything better than you can. I mean, the lyrics for that, if you listen carefully, are
Hilarious.
so amazing. And you think of the, the Jewish songwriters that were lyricists. You know, the Oscar Hammersteins and the Lerner and Lowe.
Sondheim.
You know, Sondheim wrote his own lyrics, of course, you know, and just tremendous. There is a documentary now on HBO, not HBO, it's on Netflix, Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen.
I heard that was really good.
I would highly recommend you, watch that documentary. And the lyrics, of course, to the song, the whole documentary is based on Hallelujah. Just based on how that song has just kind of captivated the world, and of course, the words just kind of, I guess, resonate with themes from the Bible, and so do Dylan songs, Bob Dylan songs. A lot of his, you could spend the whole episode on just, him as a poet and the words that he uses in his songs. So, all of these other kinds of facets of writing, are so prominent with Jewish authors. Not that they have the Jewish themes, but they just take on the fact that they were Jewish.
Yeah, if we did songwriters or lyricists, it would the number would be infinite. I mean, Bob Dylan, didn't he win the Nobel Prize as well a few years ago for literature? I think he did. Ron.
Yeah, since you're talking about writers, Arlene's mother told us that Ira and George Gershwin used to come into Arlene's grandmother's speakeasy because they had pianos, and they used to write songs there in the speakeasy.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I figured that would be the lighter side, getting away from criminals.
Yeah. I imagine it wasn't just criminals who were there. Everybody probably went to the speakeasy. It's probably the place to be at that time.
How long did they have the speakeasies, Arlene?
Through the whole prohibition.
The whole prohibition area. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's what they did.
What did you do after prohibition?
After that, they had the regular restaurants.
Okay, that's wild.
This was in New York City?
Yeah.
Near Yankee Stadium?
Brooklyn, New York City.
Where was Yankee Stadium?
Was that the-
Bronx.
100 and Yankee Stadium was
168 or something, 168th in the
Is it
Bronx?
the Bronx? It's in the Bronx.
The Bronx, yeah.
I really need to look at a map one of these days and figure out where the Bronx and Brooklyn.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
I've only been to Manhattan twice. I think.
nice.
Oh, my, we got it. You are, go ahead, Marlon.
All right. People from New York. If I were to say that you're going to go up the river, what would you think that I'm going? Where?
Sing Sing.
Sing Sing,
Sing Sing,
right.
that's
Right.
it.
And if you say that to other people, well, like I have said it, where are you going to, where are you going up the river? Only New Yorkers know what that is.
Or swimming with the fishes.
Right. Well, up the river, I would
Right.
know is going to prison and swimming with the
Yeah.
fishes.
What
I
about-
remember from the
Yeah, it's Sing
Godfather.
Sing, right?
Right.
Sing Sing.
I know Sing Sing, but I knew it was prison.
It's up the Hudson River.
Right.
Oh, is
Swimming
that where
with
it
the-
comes from?
Swimming with the fishes means that they put your feet in concrete.
Right. That's from the Godfather.
You went to the
Godfather. Yeah, yeah.
What was the guy who got? What was his name? The guy who
Oh.
swam with the fishes in the Godfather. It was
Oh, the Godfather.
the
Yeah.
big guy. I forgot his name.
Oh.
Chris used to always remember. All right, so let's go to anybody else. Have other authors? I think Larry, you had another one, or Karen, did you? It was your turn. Did you
Well,
have?
I didn't look him up, but Herman Wouk comes to mind.
Oh.
I actually heard him speak in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Got to meet him, but he was, I don't know what his first, but I know Marjorie Morningstar was one of the early ones. And
Herman Wouk.
yeah, exactly.
Herman Wouk.
Going woke.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wouk.
obviously, he's written. I mean, he like even bigger than Leon Uris or
Yes, yours,
He
yeah.
wrote the Caine Mutiny, and he wrote
Right.
Winds of War and War
Oh,
Remembrance.
that,
is
yeah.
probably most
Winds of
famous.
War and Remembrance.
For me, it's the Hope and Glory. I mean, the Hope and Glory. It's the two histories of
About Israel, right?
Israel, which I always thought.
I think I have those.
Yeah, I actually haven't read War and Remembrance. That's funny.
Oh, my goodness. That was made into a mini series
Right.
back in the, I want to say maybe 80s.
And I think the Winds of War were too, because I did see the
Yes.
two miniseries.
Double, yeah, and it's an amazing series. Wow. It had quite a cast too.
Yeah, and also Kane
Yeah,
Mutiny has been, and Herman Work lived to 103.
wow.
He was 10 days away from living to 104.
Wow. When did he die?
He died in 2019, so fairly recently.
Very recently, yeah, yeah.
So he was, let's see, was he born in
Marjorie
America?
Morningstar was,
What did you say, Larry?
I was at Marjorie Morningstar. That was a name I think that they give her in the book, but her real name that they started with is Marjorie Morningstern.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes, that was her. Yeah.
He calls her Marjorie Morningstar.
I have not read it, and I haven't seen the movie
Oh, it's
either.
classic
Yeah,
too.
Gene Kelly in it in a non-dancing kind of role. It was really
Yeah,
it
so it's
changed
Natalie
a
Wood
little
was
bit,
in it.
but It was
I mean,
Natalie Wood, I think, was in the film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he is one of the major figures. And
Natalie,
let's say he was a first generation. Almost all of these people we've mentioned are first generation
American.
Americans, born or moved here when they were little kids. That's that whole. So yeah, he is one of the great American writers of
Oh,
all
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So, and the
Well,
Hope and Glory, just that kind of helped me get really, become more and more Zionistic.
Was James Michener Jewish? Do you know?
I don't think he was, but he could have been.
Yeah, you're going to Google him, yeah.
I am. Let's see here. I don't think he
Yeah,
was, but
good.
I'd love to claim him because he wrote a really good book on Texas.
Well, he wrote the book The Source, right?
Right.
That was the
No, he was almost Jewish. He was a Quaker.
Oh,
Quaker. Oh. Yeah, we visited his house actually in Pennsylvania last summer, and the museum and house there is marvelous,
Ah.
marvelous. They have an exhibit of his studio, the way he wrote and things of that nature. And
Yeah, I loved reading because I went to Poland, so I read his novel Poland. Obviously read
Tales of the South
Texas.
Pacific, which was made into the show South
Right.
Pacific.
Right, and Centennial was a great miniseries. I read Hawaii when I was in Hawaii. So
yeah, I read
books
that.
when I was going
Absolutely.
places.
It's
I always found his books hard to get into. If you could
Yeah.
get past the first 50 or so pages, then it was
Yeah, exactly.
But I always struggled with getting into them.
That's exactly how I was. With
Yeah.
also, Poland gave me really, even though I don't remember the details, it gives a really good idea of the turmoil of Poland going from one nation to the other, who they
Oh my
supported,
gosh, yeah.
to, all the way back to fighting the Muslims, to Russia and Germany, and it was really a good book.
Poland had quite a, yeah.
So that's a good, he is not Jewish, but we should still claim him because I'm sure he had a lot of friends who were Jewish.
If we did his DNA, he'd probably have
Yeah,
some Jewish, yeah.
All right,
in
let's
the
do a
same
couple-
Somebody else, go ahead.
in the same newspaper that had the article about the way we were, there's also an article about a couple of new books that came out. One of them is called The In-Betweens by a writer called Davon, Davon Loeb. And it's a coming of age story of a biracial son of a black mother and a Jewish father in a predominantly white New Jersey suburb. And apparently it got some very good buzz and very good writing here. I don't know the author, but it's interesting about In-Betweens because, there have been several films that I've seen years ago about children born in India to British families that were biracial, and they had, this kind of a mixed identity. And, with all of the assimilation going on in the United States and, mixed racial marriages and things of that nature. But this one seemed pretty interesting. Biracial son of a black mother and a Jewish father, predominantly white New Jersey suburb. I don't know where, based on some facts, I guess. The In-Betweens.
Yeah, and In-Between has become, I know there's a very funny British comedy about it. It's about teenagers who don't quite fit in. But it's also, you could talk about the Americans who had kids during the Vietnam War, and they were, had a lot of issues when they were
even the Germans, even in Germany, the GIs in Germany, that black GIs that were with white women in Germany. Yeah.
Vietnam, it's a big issue in Vietnam.
Yeah.
What about Chaim Potok? I don't remember
I'm
much.
Potok, one of the greats.
I know, I read a lot of his books also back when, not recently, but.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still. I've gone to see him
No,
speak.
he's passed.
Well, he was Hasidic or not? I can't remember.
No,
I don't
no, he
think
was
so.
Orthodox, but not
I don't think
Hasidic.
he
Not
was,
he was
yeah.
Orthodox.
Okay, but he was Orthodox, yeah.
Yeah,
We
he
had him,
is.
we had him as a speaker at our Lake Hiawatha Jewish Center. I was chairman of adult ed at the time, and we had hired him. He lived in Philadelphia area, and he
He
came
was-
in and he talked. And his main themes always seemed to be like in The Chosen about the conflict between the religious world and the secular world. About this kid, this kid Danny, I think it is,
Right.
in The Chosen, who is striving to get out. You know, when he wants to go to college, but to learn anything, his father's a rabbi, and to learn anything except rabbinical stuff is is heresy almost on the part of the family. And can you live in both worlds? And it's this conflict that they have, which eventually, a brilliant child who's conflicted because he wants to learn. And I think that's his theme in so many of the books, whether it's a painter and or whether it's a
James Asherlev.
writer. Yeah, Asherlev.
Yeah.
He
Those are
used
to
it
remember,
over and
though.
over again. Yeah.
Larry,
Two
Larry,
Asherlev books, the two Chosen and The Promise.
Name.
But he
Did you
was a
see-
conservative rabbi, actually, not Orthodox.
Oh,
did
okay.
you see the film, The Chosen?
Oh yeah, that's a great film. One of the few
Yeah.
really good.
Seen it in a long time. Huh.
Yeah, it was recently on within the last month I saw it.
Yeah, Robbie Benson, who played the main
Right.
character, one of the main characters,
Right.
cousin or aunt lived in Houston. So I remember he
Oh.
also did. He was the voice of the Beast and Beauty and the Beast. That's why.
On the TCM, they had 1 month every Thursday that had Jewish themed movies.
Oh,
And that's where we saw it again, The Chosen. Larry,
It's
do
a
you
great
know what
book
the,
and a great movie.
you know what the ending was, Larry? About the boy that wanted to go out into the world? He did.
I'm sorry, I didn't, you're breaking up a little. I didn't hear it, Ron. Say it again.
Do you know the ending of that novel?
Yeah, he does go to college. You mean in
Right.
The Chosen? Yeah, he does go to college. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think he somehow is able to settle in. When Potok first talked with us, the thing I remember is that Brideshead Revisited was on TV at the time, which is a novel by a British writer, Evelyn Waugh. And apparently, for some reason, even though Potok was a kid at the time, when the novel came out, he went to the library and he was permitted to go to the library. And he took that book out. The librarian had suggested it. And he went home and he read it. And his comment, I still remember it from the talk that he gave, was that I felt more like I knew these people than I did my own family in reading it. That's what made him, if there was a moment in his life, which was a transition moment of what made him become a writer, as he says, it was the writing of this author, Evelyn Waugh, who wrote The Brideshead Revisited, which became this very popular miniseries on TV, on public television years ago. And he said that influenced him, that, someone from the outside world who was not Jewish, who had an identity that was so different than his, could have lived a life that had such an impact on him and things of that nature. So, you never know where your influences come from.
Right, and again, him and Uris and Wolk are kind of the three of the big heavy hitters that have a lot of Jewish themes.
right.
Of course, Wolk. Anybody else want to add any? I got some others, but I want to make sure people have.
I'll throw one more into the mix.
please.
I don't remember the name of the author, but the book is Everything Will Be Illuminated. I don't know.
Oh
if you-
yeah, it's
Everything is illuminated.
yeah,
Um,
one of my wife's
Is it
favorite
Jonathan?
I
books.
love that book.
Is it Fowler? Is it-
Oh, I
Look it
can't,
up, I just forgot
I
his
can look
name,
it up.
too.
I'll look it up.
It is
But that is a
Saffron,
marvelous-
Jonathan
Yeah,
Saffron.
Jonathan Safran.
Saffron.
It was a movie also.
The
Yeah.
movie is fantastic. The movie is-
Rabbi,
Yeah.
there's also a book, the Joys of Yiddish by
Oh,
Leo
yeah.
Rustin. Leo
Oh, yeah.
Rustin, The Joys of Yiddish.
Talk about Safronic, because Jonathan, how do you say it, Safronic? No,
No, Saffron.
I'm thinking of Susan Safranik, Susan, yeah. Rest in
It
peace.
was our neighbor.
Yeah, but that's an amazing book.
The book itself is very complex because he goes back and he creates what would have been the Yiddish shtetl at the time. The movie is totally different in that the
Yeah,
movie
agreed.
simplifies it quite a bit in order to make it understandable. But
Right.
the book goes back in time into several different periods of the shtetl life and how a lot of the traditions kind of stem up from things that are, you know, almost nonsensical, and you know whether they're true or not. But it's kind of a glimpse into Eastern Europe, what may have happened at the time. I don't know. It's just
Well,
an,
yeah,
an
story.
amazing book and an amazing film. And the film, of course, has got a double entendre in the meaning. You know, when he says everything will be illuminated. When, you know, I won't reveal it if you haven't seen it, but the
Yeah.
that part of the
That one.
story is
Have
yeah,
you
is-
read that one, Rabbi Haas?
I have read, I did not, I started years ago and I never finished it. My
It's a
wife
wonderful-
read
it's
it
really a good one.
and then really liked it, but I just,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go back and read. It's one of those that, I've started and for some reason stopped and always regret not finishing it. So
Story, what is it? A
Then-
grandson promises his grandmother he's going to go back.
yeah, he goes and visit. He has a
Saved
guide who's
life
going to
or
take him around. It's a really interesting,
Yeah.
charismatic guide he goes to see.
Right.
But yeah, I have
Cool.
not read. I really should go back and read it. I should even
go back and-
admit I didn't read it.
You know,
I did read it. I'm just going to put it out there so people think I'm educated.
If you do go back and read it, the real hint is that he identifies the chapters in a different print, so that when you go back in time, in order to at least have a place marker there, as I recall, he's got this scheme of so when he goes to a different chapter and it's in a different font or something, that it's a different story that he's telling.
Right.
Otherwise, you really can get mixed up.
Well, I will go back and read it. I really should. My wife, it's again one of her favorite books, so I probably should.
Yeah, it's one of mine. I loaned it to somebody and now I can't. I don't remember who borrowed
Well,
it.
there's no way to get a copy. I mean, it's impossible to get one these
Really?
days. That's why I haven't read. I'm just kidding. It take me 2 minutes on Amazon.com to get.
Oh yeah, I swear that's why I ordered that film, The Long Way
Okay.
Home.
But we have a lot of other authors. Michael Chabon, of course, somebody mentioned the Yiddish Policemen's Union, and of course, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which won him the Pulitzer. So I actually like the Yiddish Policemen's Union better than The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, even though I am kind of a nerd and like sci-fi and it talks a little bit about the golem. But the Yiddish Policemen's Union I thought was even better. So that was just my view. If you haven't read that one, the Yiddish Policemen's Union is about if the Jews were able to leave Europe before the Holocaust and America put them all in Alaska.
Oh.
Oh wow.
So it's like Alaska becomes a giant Jewish haven. And they're it's almost like a ghetto, but in Alaska. And it's about, a police officer investigating a murder. So it was really, really excellent. Other ones I wanted to mention before is obviously Philip Roth. If you haven't read any of his, I think all of us have.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Most people have read, American Pastoral, which again is probably, I think it's the most famous book, but he's written so many famous
Goodbye
books.
Columbus is one of them.
Goodbye Columbus would be another one.
Oh, is that Leon? No, is that Philip?
Portnoy's Complaint, of
That's
course.
Portnoy's
Yeah,
Complaint,
Portnoy's
but
Complaint,
but
right.
he did Goodbye Columbus as well, I believe.
Okay, I could.
Goodbye
Yeah.
Columbus.
Yeah. And then, but the one I read was the not the most recent one, but Plot Against America, which was really interesting. I think it did well. I think it was a New York Times bestseller. It's about if Lindbergh had beaten Roosevelt for the 1940 presidency and had made peace with Japan and Germany and kind of to instigate anti-Semitic things against trying to move Jews all to the Midwest. And it was also a little bit about that possibly the Germans had kidnapped his son and they still had him, and that's why they were able to control him. So it was very, very interesting and a very scary novel. But obviously Portnoy's Complaint is what made him, an international star. But so if you, I think most people, but again, he's kind of the next generation of really great American novelists, born in it from New York, New Jersey, or he's from New Jersey. And I'm sure he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, I believe, or is nominated for the Nobel Prize for Literature. I think he actually won it. But he's written a ton of books. And again, he also stayed, many of them on Jewish themes, not all of them, but many of them. And, he served in the military and was smart enough to have a back injury and basic training, which I remember about him, which was a great way to get out if you didn't want to go to Korea. And then
Another one that deserves mention in playwrights is Tony Kushner, Angels in America, and he's he actually has been writing some other stuff as well, screenplays and things. But Angels in America, of course, is the one about AIDS and about America at the time. Just an unbelievable play. I think the play is like in 2 or 3 different parts. I don't think you could sit through it all at once. They used to have an intermission and you'd come back after dinner or something like that, watch the second part and things like that when they did it on Broadway. But it was on TV and with Meryl Streep, I believe, and
Had an amazing cast. Yeah.
It's just a really gripping play.
And before we conclude, I just want to mention 2 more because I want to make sure we get the next month. Bruce Feiler, for those of you, he grew up at Congregation Mikveh Israel.
That's right, Bruce.
Those of you know, and he has written a host of bestsellers, maybe 7, I think, bestsellers, including, of course, his most famous is Walking the Bible.
Yeah.
But he also wrote a bunch of books that I think, on other religious, like he wrote the book called Abraham, about Abraham. He wrote a book about Moses. He wrote a book about God. He wrote a book called The Secret of Happy Families. He wrote a book about the Council of Dads, which was when he found diagnosed with a cancer that only 5% of people live from getting that cancer. And he wrote a book based upon his relationship with his dad, who was a wonderful man as well.
Ed.
Ed is a wonderful man. So he is, he does a lot of speaking. He's in the, he wrote for the New York Times. He wrote for, I think, the New Yorker. One of his books became a TV show, Council of Dads, which had only lasted 1 season, but it was during all the issues they were having with whether Hollywood wanted to stay in Georgia because we were going to be passing certain bills. And so they went up to him and said, listen, there's a lot of issues. Can we move this out of Savannah and film this somewhere else? And he said, no, we need to film this in Savannah. And so even though it was the season.
Bruce Feiler's mother, Jane, she's the past president of Mikveh Israel, and she's still with us.
She is. She's a wonderful lady. She is the first female president in our congregation's history.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, we know her.
Yeah, she's a great, really tremendous individual. Still helps a lot. She's still on one of the heads of the art committee for our congregation, choosing what goes up and what doesn't. And he's got 2 twin daughters. His first book, or one of his books, obviously, when he spent a year in the circus. And he wrote about his time in the circus. And, so then he went into some others. So almost all of his books go onto the bestseller list. So he's a super nice guy, very, very personable, and an excellent speaker. So the other one I want to mention is Jonathan Rabb, who is also a member of our congregation. And he is actually a vice president, and he's our vice president now and will, in 2 years, be our next president. And he, of course, is from New Jersey, went to Yale, he went to Columbia, did he go Princeton or Yale?
Princeton he went to, yeah.
No, he grew up in Princeton, but he went to Yale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, then he went to Columbia, and then he was a professor in New York, and then they wanted a different way of life, and they moved down here, and he became a professor at SCAD, and his wife, who was very big in the TV and movie business, she's the one who got all of the actors, is now one of the chairs at SCAD as well. So she's actually got a very big title there. And he's written a lot of books. Of course, Rosa was his most famous, but he wrote one recently about a Holocaust survivor who comes to live with his family in Savannah, Georgia.
Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
Bless you, in the
Thank you.
1940s and 50s. And so that was a book that was just released a couple of years ago, but it was really nice because a lot of people knew, kind of guess what some of these characters were. Who did what from, he changed the names, but obviously a lot of people could figure out. And again, another person, very personal. The book's Among the Living, if you haven't read it. Very personal, just the nicest guy, and he's still a professor at SCAD. And he's a pretty prominent author as well. I think he's working on another book. They're always, these guys and gals are always working on another book. It's really hard to get one of these things printed. So those are some of the great American Jewish authors. There's so many more.
Mhm.
Now, before we continue, I want to mention again, March 22nd will be our in-person at 10:30 at Flossie's house. We'll send out more information as we go along. And we just need to know, we haven't set subject matters for the next couple of weeks. Does anybody have any ideas of what they'd like to study? Any ideas? We could go back and talk about politics in Israel, as things have changed so much over the last couple of weeks.
We're tired of politics already.
We could do it different. We could do another history, something about history in different places. We could go back and talk about the Kabbalah again, which we haven't done in a while.
That would be good.
Rabbi,
Uh-huh.
what about Hollywood stars that are Jewish but unknown? They changed their names.
We could do
Tony Curtis.
Jewish movie stars.
Was it
You wanna do that
Bernie
next week?
Bernard? What was his?
Bernie Schwartz.
Bernie
Bernie
Schwartz.
Schwartz. Of course. Sorry.
You got June Allison.
We don't know her
June
name.
Allison was Jewish.
Oh,
I didn't know
yeah,
she was
yeah.
Jewish either.
Oh, that. Maybe I didn't.
Barbara Stanwyck.
Barbara,
All right, so we'll do Jewish
Right.
movie stars who changed their names, which is all of them, except for the recent ones. Okay, that's what we'll do on
Barbara
March 3rd.
Streisand's name.
Lauren Bacall was Jewish.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jewish.
Betty, what was her?
Betty
Betty.
Persky.
Betty
Yes.
Persky.
Betty Persky.
And of course, the most famous, like Kirk Douglas, John Gielgud. I just did something on this recently.
Itzhak, what was his name?
John Garfield. I said Gielgud.
It's
John
not-
Garfield.
No.
I can't
Eddie
remember.
Lamar.
Oh, yeah, Eddie Lamar.
Oh, she was really something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she was
She was an inventor, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
she was an
Yeah.
inventor, yeah.
During the war.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the physicist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and some
Yeah,
of her stuff later
yeah.
was used
Stuart
for
talked
radar.
about, yeah.
Yeah.
Stuart did.
Okay, so we'll do
yes.
Jewish movie stars who changed their names next week. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
As always, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Next week, we'll do Jewish movie stars again. March 22nd will be live, but it will also be on Zoom. Karen.
You were gonna, this is just, send us the Purim Spiel script.
Yes, I'm waiting for it to be sent. I sent the
Oh,
edits
okay.
to Rabbi Gelman.
It's what, a week from Sunday, right?
But yeah, it is. I'm sorry. He wrote this beautiful, wonderful Purim Spiel. It's just twice as long as we usually do.
Oh, dear.
I cut about half of it.
Oh,
And I
okay.
sent it to him, and now he's doing the final edits. So I'll probably tomorrow or Friday. Sorry about
We
that.
did watch the
Yeah.
movie. I had never seen the movie, The Princess.
Did you
Bride.
like it?
Yes, so we watched
Is it
it.
cute? Yeah,
I guess over the weekend. Yeah.
yeah.
That was
It's
good
it's
preparation.
a very cute movie.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay.
all right. So I apologize again. I did final
That's
finish
okay.
it. I just have. He wanted to. I
Remind
took out a bunch of scenes he wants to keep back in. So I said you got to take other stuff out. So
Okay.
all right. Pleasure,
You're
guys.
out here this afternoon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3:00 at
Yeah.
Jane and Larry's today. Our condolences again. And a
Yeah.
week from Sunday at noon, we'll have pizza, and then at 12:15 we'll do the Purim Spiel and Karen and
Stuart.
Stuart. I don't know if they're gonna have one or two parts because he play with a lot of characters. So you may be the
Oh,
two main ones on this. I don't know if he's gonna be your son or if I'm gonna your grandson.
Stuart will be my grandson. That'll be fun.
Or am I going to change him and do something else? So we haven't figured that out
He's-
yet. That's the biggest part.
He's the actor, much more so than
Yeah.
me. He's good.
I'll give him 2 parts. Yeah, it's hard because it's a scene where, in the movie Princess Bride, you have the grandfather and the grandson, and in the play, the guy wrote, they're on the stage the whole time pretty much.
Okay.
So I may change it to grandmother and grandson, and we'll see depending on how many actors we have.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.